All right, Dawn. Thank you for being my very first guest.
My pleasure.
Do you know
Feel
what
honored.
the name of this series is Nate in the Neighborhood.
I heard, when you sent me the invite, it said Nate in the Neighborhood.
It did.
But it is.
Okay, well, and the idea is just to talk to totally awesome small business owners like yours in our community.
Okay.
So the community we're in right now is Gorham Hill. And do it while sort of walking through the neighborhood, your neighborhood,
Just running.
and kind of just hear a little bit of your story.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm ready to tell it.
Okay, Dawn. So, first of all, Dawn of One Girl Cookie fame. And in fact,
You're kind.
yeah, I knew One Girl Cookie long before I knew you,
I know.
which is hard to believe at this juncture. So just give us a little bit of backstory about OGC. How did you end up in this neighborhood, in this community? And I know you've now expanded beyond this community, but you're still very Brooklyn, like extremely Brooklyn in my book.
It's all about Brooklyn.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how you ended up here. Yeah, give us a little story, a little history.
So, I actually started my business in Manhattan. Did you know that?
I think I did know that, but I feel like, just give us a little bit of how did the relocation,
Happen?
the arrival here.
Well, the relocation really started with the romance between Dave and I. Because when I had the business in Manhattan, and then he and I started dating after I hired him, right? You know that.
Yes, you hired him as a baker.
Yes.
Correct.
And then we wanted to move in together, and so we moved in. We couldn't find a place in Manhattan, and so we found a place in this neighborhood.
Nice. And how long ago was that?
2013. Is that right? No.
No.
Not right. It's 2003.
Yeah, it's way longer than that.
2003. Yes, because we got married in 2005. So we moved in 2003. We got engaged in 2004. And we moved in together. I mean, we got
You
married.
guys, that's like almost a shotgun wedding, actually. I mean,
2 years?
Oh no, is that for?
We dated for a year. We got,
Right.
we got engaged for a
Dang
year.
it, that's fast. I love it. I feel like with Jessica and I, it was like we met in college as teeny boppers, and it took us like 7 to 8 years to figure out what to do next. But maybe that's
You
the
were
reason why.
young.
Because we were young, you were mature.
We were old, yes. We were
Yes.
already old. We had to get on it.
I dig it. So you arrive here, like
We
17-ish
arrived here
years.
off the boat from Manhattan.
Yes, you cross the bridge,
Yeah.
and what are you like?
Thank you.
Your connection, just what was your impression of the community then? How did you dial in, like just begin to connect? Because one of the ways that, like I've always imagined One Girl Cookie is that I would see so many of my friends sitting at your coffee bar or picking up cookies or just hanging out. So how did you end up creating that sort of version of a neighborhood spot?
I mean, I think like in so many ways, it's just natural for what we do, right? I mean, like cookies, coffee, you have those types of things. People come together. It's a meeting place. And so it was kind of organic. What's interesting is, the neighborhood then was so different than it is now, right? Like, we moved in, Smith Street, super different. A lot of still the old Spanish and
You want to
Italian.
pick up here
Yes,
and we'll
yes.
double around?
It was still
Right,
a lot of the Spanish
yes.
and Italian businesses in the neighborhood. And so it was right when the neighborhood was just starting to like gentrify and
Yeah.
really change quite a bit. And I think honestly, the key to like really like immersing ourselves into the community was PS 261, which is the local school where my kids go now. Well, not me, but Neil goes. And that's just where all the parents came, right? Like they would drop their kids off, they would all come. It was essentially like a daily PTA meeting happening in our shop.
Yes.
And then the kids would come. There would be a whole after-school situation happening, and it still does. Up until before COVID.
Right.
There's still that after-school crowd where parents come and bring their kid, or the older kids come and do their homework, or where, maybe it's like a Friday ritual. Like we have customers who have like a ritual with their kid. They come for an afternoon. I think you have one of those rituals, right?
I had a ritual with Pearl for a long time where we'd come get a slice of cake. And early on, we would do exactly that. We would come there and do homework.
Yep.
I would do my homework.
Yeah.
Like BMF books or whatever.
It's pretty motivating. Cupcake can be very motivating.
It is, and I just love. Let's just zoom in on that kind of pre-COVID for a moment. Playground network, because when I sort of describe this to my friends that don't yet have children, I'm like, you gotta understand, or maybe the kids are little, they're micros, that the playground becomes this place where you might make some of your closest, lifelong friends.
Yes.
And I feel like what you're describing at One Girl Cookie is sort of like how those friendships, that gives it room to sort of evolve, because that's where the hang is.
Right, the physical space.
Yeah, you create that. You create the space where you can start to get to know one another.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you're just picking up and dropping off. Your kids, and you're just sort of trying to get through the day.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
and
it's
it's interesting too, because that's a big part of it, the kid piece, and that part of the community. But also, when we designed it, we really thought about how do we design it in a way that really encourages interaction. But we didn't want to force the interaction, right? So that's why, when you walk in, you've got the espresso bar, and on one side of it is seating. And that was very intentional. It was meant to be like a bar. So you would go and, just like you would talk to your bartender, you might go and hang and get to know your barista. And then there was seating in the garage area, formerly the garage.
Yes.
For people who didn't want that. For people who wanted privacy, they wanted to spend time with a friend, they wanted to work on a laptop or whatever it was. So we wanted to provide this space for the interaction. And the way it's situated, which was less intentional, is that if people are sitting at the bar area and they walk in and they're at the counter, they are interacting with the barista, but then they're sort of right there within the space of the people sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
And so often there's just this natural interaction that begins there. And some really interesting conversations happen. A lot of, so-and-so, I know that person too. And a lot of small world stories kind of happen right there and are discovered right there. And I love that.
I feel like I've had dozens of those at your place.
Yeah, probably.
And some of these people will be relationships that continue. I think I met Tad there, sitting at the bar.
I'm sure.
And of course, I didn't know I was already reading his books to my kid.
Right.
But we were just hanging out at the bar, right? And what's funny too is that Pearl and I started.
Thank you.
How you doing? Pearlie and I started at the bar, and then eventually, as homework picked up, graduated to the garage.
You had to become more serious.
Yeah, we had to get more serious. Yeah. So, tell me about friendships or relationships that you've made, because that's one of the things that that's one of the things I love about working and doing what I do at BMS, is the community room and just all the people that I meet. Case in point, you, Dave.
Right, here we are.
Have you found friendships that have extended beyond customers?
Yeah, well, you've just brought up Tad, and so he and his wife Lee have become good friends.
Right, nice.
And we see them outside of work / outside of the shop.
Right.
And then there are a lot of other people who maybe we knew them elsewhere, maybe introduced by a mutual friend or something one time. But then I think once they realize that I own One Girl Cookies, all of a sudden it's we're old friends, right?
Head up and we'll...
Yeah.
Yes, so what is it about that Because I feel like I've experienced that also at BMF where people are like, oh wait, you're like, you're with Pira who started Brooklyn Music Factory, and then they go, and they feel like they ought to, all of a sudden,
They know you.
yeah, they know you. So what do you think the root of that is?
I think it's twofold. I think one part of it is that.
Oh my God, here we are. You know what?
Here we are.
I thought we are. So
But they left
the sign.
the sign is still out. We need to put it away.
Okay, we're putting the sign away, but we're here in front of OGC. So One Girl Cookie, there's the garage. Here's their amazing display, which has always been amazing.
Oh,
Your displays are just off the hizzer.
that's our. This is the COVID display, so people can actually see what we need. So yeah. So I think.
We continue. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
go.
maybe we'll swing by one more time. But
All right.
so yeah, what's the root of? Okay, yeah, totally. Check it out. That's what actually it's like owning a small business. You swing by and find your sign still on the sidewalk. That's actually the. You got it. You're never off. You're always on.
And I don't have my key. I can't put it away.
Dig it. Just keeping it real,
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah. This is the life, right?
This, in fact,
This
is the life.
This is a snapshot in the life. I think to answer your question about why that is,
Yeah.
I think it's two reasons. One is for my business. For yours, it's probably a similar answer but slightly different. It's because there is some connection there, right? Like it's the place where I come there every day with my kid, or
Yeah.
we got our wedding cake from you guys, or
Yeah.
whatever. There's a story, and most of the time, thankfully, it's a happy one, right? Because we're talking about cake and
Right.
cupcakes and sweets,
Right.
and those are used to celebrate happy things most of the time. So there is, it's almost like they meet me and then they're sort of taken back to whatever that happy memory is.
Like even if it's homework with your kid, like I'm just
There's a
like that
ritual,
is
right?
actually the ritual that I cherish and I miss
Right.
now with my
Right. So there's like
17-year-old.
this like nostalgic memory, or there's an attachment to something happy that happens in your life or happens regularly, or maybe is still happening. And then secondly, I just think that people, especially in this community that really values small businesses,
Mm-hmm.
I think there is definitely a fascination with the people that own the businesses around here. So I think your series
Right.
is going to be really interesting. I
It'll
think
be
people will like it for that reason.
I hope so, because I mean, I know I'm in the game, but I find the life of small business owners to be super interesting.
I do too.
You know, and I think it's like what we're talking about right now that is sort of the most fascinating part. So why are we interested in this community, in particular in small business? Because I do feel like you're touching on something that's like, that is, maybe we'll do a big loop, huh? Why
Okay,
not?
Let's do it.
I feel like you're touching on something that's truly unique about this, you know, about Brooklyn. I mean, definitely about this neighborhood we're in. Because I feel like myself, I mean, how many small business owners do you know? It's
Yeah.
like probably dozens.
Yeah, I mean a lot. And I think probably most business owners do, but I really go out of my way to meet other business owners. And obviously you do too. If I were
Here we are,
doing this, right?
walking the hood, yeah.
But I think that, first of all, I think that we probably all share a lot of similar qualities, even if the type of business we own is different.
What would be like one or two that just come right up to mind?
Oh, like tenacious, resourceful, problem solving. Probably most of the time, people person.
Yeah.
And I think we want to learn from each other often. Sometimes there's some commiserating, sometimes,
Right.
a lot of times it is just about learning and sharing stories and experiences, finding commonality in them, finding some other bits of wisdom in them.
It's funny, do you ever feel this way, Dawn, where like, I remember early on in the years of BMF, there was like this version of where I was like, who's our competition? You know, like other music schools or, and then as I matured, I started realizing like, wait there. I don't think there is any competition, actually.
Yeah.
I think you either have a voice, in which case you really want to hear about everybody else's unique voice.
Right. We call them peers. We
Peers,
don't even
nice.
call them competition. And we've done that for a long time because competition is just an ugly word, right? It just like has this like,
There's a winner, there's a loser.
yeah, and like we're competing against each other. We're really not. We're doing it together. We're not. It's like, you know, it's almost like a team sport. You know, we're not playing against one another.
Right.
We want to see the best for our peers in the business and the industry, and other industries. We want them to succeed.
So, okay, so, yeah, and that's not an easy thing that's actually a transition, right? As a small business owner, I felt like it was a transformation, I should say. I felt like it was for me, where I started wanting the success for everyone rather than thinking, well, about market share or about these terms that I'm learning in class, you know, or out of a book that sort of don't quite make sense in this like micro community to me.
Well, I think that, you know, in theory they do. We're taught to think about your competition.
Yeah.
You know, how are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to be different? So you're going to be different by being you, and your business is basically, another version of you.
Yeah, it's an
And
extension.
exactly. So that's how you'll be different. I did think what you said about as you got older and more mature,
Yeah.
you really do become wiser. And I remember when we first opened, every other business that was even remotely like ours before, like as they were opening, because as I said, the neighborhood was gentrifying, and so there were a lot of places that opened right after we did, and I remember feeling sick about it, just thinking,
like,
forget it, that's it, we're never
like
going to
that's
survive.
it. Yes.
And I think back now, I think, oh gosh, that was so stupid. Of course we're going to survive. There's room for all of us, you know, and
Yeah.
I think it does happen gradually when you don't feel threatened that way anymore. You feel more confident with what you're doing, your business, your idea, your vision, your product,
Right.
and the experience that you're offering, and realize that you don't have to be afraid. Like no one's going to steal that. They can't.
Yeah, someone once said to me, like, well, Nate, listen, when someone actually starts stealing your ideas, it's actually the highest form of, you know, it's like,
Right.
it's actually should be quite flattering
Yeah.
because it'll never be their voice
Right. Because it's yours.
because it's sort
And
of
it's
yours.
Right. It's unique.
So, okay, so let's talk about COVID for a minute because you're still going, which I'm quite grateful for because I'm a super fan of the Whoopi pie and have been long since before we met. Tell me, like, let's just get real. How have you stayed connected to the community in COVID? How have you kept your optimism, if you've been able to keep your optimism that, you know, One Girl Cookie can continue to serve, you know, the community, which is, I'm telling you,
We have to.
we have to, but
Yeah.
it's not easy
No.
to keep the faith.
No.
But tell us, how are you guys doing?
So yeah, we're good. You know, I mean, I think it's hard, right? It is hard, and some days I feel more optimistic than others. And frankly, a lot of my fuel, a lot of the energy that I get, and the will to keep moving forward, and you know, even though it's hard, and there are some days where I just think like, should we, you know, like,
Yeah.
is this the right thing to do? Really comes from the community itself, right? Because we know they love us. We know that there would be a hole here if we were not here anymore. And the community has been remarkably supportive. And I think there is a sense of like, we just can't let them down. You know, we can't, they've done everything that they could to support us during this time, whether that was donating to the GoFundMe that we've had for our staff early on in this whole thing. You know, people buying gifts. We know that they many times didn't really need to buy a gift. They found a reason to buy a gift for someone, buying gift cards that they'll never use.
Yeah.
You know, when we first started doing the delivery again, which is how our first reopening was in April.
I remember I got a delivery from Dave.
Yes, you did. And Dave and I were the ones, like really like old times. He and I would go in, he would do the baking, I would pack, we would get in the car, and we would go deliver everything together.
It's just taking it way back.
Taking it way back, and it was sweet and charming for a little while.
Right.
And then it got tired and old and tiring.
Yes.
You know? But when we started doing that, the messages that we got, people were so excited that we were trying to survive, and it looked like we were going to survive, and that they were able to get their favorite treats again. And we got the sweetest messages. And so I feel like in so many ways we have a responsibility to do whatever we can to make this work.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
It's like that part to me is sort of like, I know exactly what you're talking about, where you're like, you know, at BMF, it's like for us, it's like you've got this kid, you know, you've got a kid like Nate who's like on a journey.
Right. How you gonna abandon him?
Is
You
the
can't.
idea that like we could just like step away and be like, don't worry, dude, we'll recommend a good next step for you.
Exactly. It's done.
It's
It's
like-
done for Nate.
Yeah, I'm like, that's just, it's not even an option.
That's
so,
right.
But that sort of energy is fascinating to me. Like, where's that coming from? And how do we like build on that?
Well, I think it comes from gratitude, right? It just comes from gratitude for the people that got us here in the first place,
Right,
our
totally.
customers and our community,
Yep.
and who now rely on us and who consider us family. And same, right? You know, that's reciprocal. And yeah, you know, like when we first started doing deliveries again, we weren't doing cakes at first, and then a few weeks in we started offering cakes. And an old customer, she's been coming in since the day we opened. She emailed and said, "I'm so happy. The timing is perfect." It was her son's birthday, and she said he's now 18, I think. And she said he's never had a birthday cake from anybody other than One Girl Cookies.
Oh,
And I thought, oh my God, imagine.
yeah.
Like, we can't let people like that down.
Wait, how old is he now? You said 8?
He must be 17. Must be 17.
That's an amazing story. Like,
Right?
that's a thread that you have in this family's tradition. That's
Right, every birthday. So, yeah, I think that's what it is, you know, they just know, like, we're getting the cake, we know we get the, you know, the yellow cake with the raspberry jam and the chocolate buttercream,
Yeah.
that's our thing. And that's part of their celebration, and for them to not be able to get that anymore.
right.
This seems boss. So, and same, you know, like for you, it's so true. I mean, if you decided, you know what, we're not doing this anymore, the work has become too hard.
Right.
My son, Nate, would not play drums anymore.
Oh! No!
He wouldn't.
No!
He wouldn't. He has
Right.
such a connection to your business, to Davis, his teacher. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I think he would really lose his steam, especially like where he is right now in terms of his.
Right, he's just coming up on puberty too,
Yeah,
and he's like,
exactly.
it's a really, really important chapter.
Right. So not musically, but also in life. You know,
Yeah.
I think he would really, it'd be hard to get him to stick to it. So, yeah, you know, I think you probably feel the same way. I don't remember the last time I worked as hard as I'm working right now.
Yes, let's talk about that for a second, because
Oh, man.
I feel like, well, I feel a number of things, but first of all, I feel like there's never been a more important time for all these different community businesses to really try to prop one another up, because it's just ass kicking hard right now.
Yep.
So
Yep.
where are you feeling the most exhaustion, and then like what's your antidote to that?
The exhaustion, you know, I mean, I think the hardest part is twofold. One is, you know, for us, our team is significantly smaller.
Yes.
We and a lot of our upper management, people that we have groomed for years to work in our business, to help us develop the systems to run the business,
Yeah.
are gone. Yeah, it hurts.
I remember you were talking a little bit. You had remember you said maybe it was a product manager or who was
The office manager?
yes, your ops manager who moved on, and I guess it was the right
She
the
wanted-
right next step for her anyways.
Totally. But
But still, there you are.
right. And so now things that I delegated out, things that became other people's jobs,
Yes.
are
Or
my
just-
job again. But I don't know how to do it anymore.
Right. Right.
So there's a lot of vulnerability there too, as an owner, right? I have to admit, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yes.
I don't really know how to figure it out. So like, I don't know how to figure out what the person who used to do this job, how they did it. So we're gonna have to start from scratch. And that's frustrating.
It's humbling too, right?
and
Because at one
humbling.
point you did do it.
Right. But
Right?
But when our business was so much smaller.
Yes.
So the system that we used then has evolved and evolved numerous times. And now is a shell of what it was when I did it, right?
Right.
So, and that's the second piece that's really hard, is just not having the systems anymore, right? So for things that we did easily, the system now has changed either because I don't know how to use it, we had to start from scratch, or because the business has changed so much that just doesn't really,
Yeah, it's
it doesn't
antiquated.
work anymore.
Totally.
So as a business owner, you know, the infrastructure, the operations, and the team are the things that you spend the majority of your time building. And
Yes.
for all of that, like that, to be gone is really hard. It just feels like, wow, we just took a huge step back.
And so, so my last question is, and this is one that I always ask for, Pira and I ask ourselves, is like, okay, given the amount of change that we've seen in our business due to COVID, where are we finding like the sort of courage to know that we'll be there on the other side to serve Nate and all the other musicians? Like, it's like, it doesn't even have to be, like, for me, sometimes I make these lists, like, there will be another drum circle in the community room. Like, I make these, like, really simple lists for myself. And I
It's like
find...
a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
Right?
right. So if I just, like, write these couple things down, so it doesn't always have to be, like, some super heavy thing for me. It just has to be, like, the thing that I love, that I cherish, in my day-to-day, life as a small business owner, which
And why
is,
you did it in the first place, or why you started doing that in the first place.
yeah, why we do it. So for you guys, for you at One Girl, just for you, not anybody other than you, like, what do you hold on to?
I don't know if this answers the question, but I think that, like, right now, I think of everything as opportunity, right? So as much as this is terrible and it sucks in so many ways, it's also, there's so many opportunities. We have the opportunity to rethink every single thing we've ever done. Our products, the way we staff, our operations, our systems, everything. And so it's hard. It's hard. I don't know that I would have...
chosen this path to rethink.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
all of it at one time.
Right,
I would have been
right.
nice to have done this a little bit more gradually. But, we make a lot of mistakes along the way, all of us.
Yeah.
And sometimes once you make that mistake, it's really hard, sometimes impossible to turn back. But this has been like a huge reset, right? And so let's just rethink everything. In a lot of ways, because we all just hit a gigantic pause button, it's almost like, well, anything's possible now. You're almost like starting over again in so many ways. And so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And, as much as it's tiring, it's exciting.
What is it about the startup phase that's exciting? You know what I mean? I feel like
All
we're
the
back
work.
in it. Because it's not the like 14-hour days. Because I can't even keep those up anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't have the mojo at 51 to be rocking that.
It's hard, you know, it's so, in some ways, right now, because I don't have that much staff and we're keeping it really lean.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of things that I haven't done in a long time, but I probably am not going to do for any real period of time, right? I'm not going to do them forever, but it's actually really good to do them again because I'm getting to see how my team is doing them and getting to rethink some of it, right? Because as a business owner in the beginning, you're doing it all slowly but surely. Like you peel off the layers of the onion and you start giving them out to others. And you're doing different things, the bigger picture things. You get really removed from the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And the actual work, the real hands-on work.
Like front lines,
All of
like
it, right? Like
all
in
of
the
it.
trenches, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, all of a sudden, things really change. They evolve, sometimes for the better, but sometimes not. You
Yeah.
don't even really know until one day you have a pandemic, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, we do it this way? Why? Why are we doing it this way? This doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Or have we thought about doing it this way instead? And so I think being forced, right, because I never would have done this otherwise. I was too busy on the big picture and all that other thing. Now it's like, well, I have to do it, and it's good for me to do it. And I think it's good for my staff to see me do it too.
So you actually, it's like the pandemic has created a space for you to, to become more aware, right? Because you've been forced to.
Yeah.
Right? And then B, to rethink what One Girl Cookie and what your life in it, how it might look different on the other side, perhaps. How you doing?
Exactly. Right.
So, okay, so this is my closer then, because we're almost back home. How do you imagine life as Dawn and One Girl Cookie after we've all gotten a vaccine and are feeling optimistic again and the economy's righting itself? How do you see your connection to the community here? Is there anything new that's presented itself for you where you're like, oh, I want to make sure I'm plugged in this way, or I want to make sure that One Girl Cookie is doing this differently on the other side? Is there anything that sort of like appeared yet or sort of take shape for you in any way? Or are we still very much in the research phase?
I think so. I mean, I think in some ways it's just maybe that gratitude and appreciation.
Right.
And making sure that I don't forget it and take it for granted, which, is easy to do.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's intense when all of a sudden these people that they're part of our community, we know them, but they're customers on a spreadsheet, and then they come to your GoFundMe.
Right.
And then they start buying gifts and gift cards, and you're like, wait a minute.
They love us.
Yeah, there's so much more than whatever the financials were spitting out. And they always were, of course, but okay, so there's that. There's like remembering and being grateful. Anything else coming out of the...
Maybe, from a more just like a business standpoint, it's just about really being a little bit more nimble, which is something we've always struggled with. Like, how do we keep the business nimble, and how do we, what are the lessons we're going to take away from this in terms of how to run the business? And that could look a lot of different ways. One example is our website.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, the shopping cart piece was not optimal. We knew it. We were going to do it, and then we didn't. Oh, we procrastinated. Oh, we didn't have the money. We didn't, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, we're really relying on this as a tool to keep the business alive, and it's an inadequate tool, right?
Yes.
And so
you discover some of the deficiencies, and you're like, wait, if we fix this, we could really actually serve a lot more people.
Right. But then now we're fixing it during a time where it's not financially ideal to have to fix it. And secondly, during a time when we're rushing because we just have to get it done. And that's not a great place to be making decisions from. So
Mm. So, okay, so Dawn, couple things, and then I'm pressing stop on my Bluetooth,
Okay.
which I thought I was going to press start stop on it a bunch.
Oh,
We
yeah,
didn't.
that doesn't
We
seem
just
right,
like
though.
no,
Yeah,
no,
no,
it didn't seem
no.
right at all. So, just like 3 days ago, I think I told Dave this, but magically, both your cookies, no, 4 whoopie pies, and a bag of your granola showed up at my door.
I heard.
Yes, I had no idea who it was from. It turns out it was from a friend in my meditation group who was just sending like a thank you gift package.
But no card?
No card. Just like, but I don't know why. It was just like one of those mysterious communal gifts.
So it's funny. So Dave told me about that.
Yeah.
And I went on to, I think he or she ordered from Cinch, right?
Yes.
So I went on to Cinch to see which orders came through. And I said to Dave, is it also a bag of granola? Because I didn't see any orders for
Right.
that time frame for just whoopie pies. And I gave him 2 names of people that it could have been that ordered within the time frame that he received. But then he never told me if it was.
But no, so then I followed up at our next Zoom meditation. I said, hey guys, any chance to send me 4 whoopie pies?
How
And they're
did you
like,
know
"Yes."
it was one somebody from that group?
Because Dave forwarded a name to me. But here's my point, is that how did they know that I love your one girl cookie whoopie pies? They didn't.
They didn't?
They didn't know that, but they picked your spot to send me a gift. And here we are. So that to me is like really capturing.
Full circle right there.
That's a full circle. And it's just like what's so important, because we can't always put our finger on the thing, but it exists. That energy is there, and it like keeps us close.
I love that.
You know, I don't even. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I love it because so you got those whoopie pies, you enjoyed them, right, for what
Yes.
they were, which were whoopie pies. And that's something that you really like, and that's great. But then also it was the connection that we have, right, that you have to Dave and I, and so I think it went even beyond that. But this person that sent them to you didn't know that you like whoopie pies, that you know Dave and I, that any of it.
That literally that morning I had been on like a 2-hour walk with Dave to Brooklyn Bridge Park, and I told them that I was like, "Do you guys realize that you sent me whoopie pies from One Girl Cookie?" And Dave, who is one of the he's one of the owners, and I were on a walk this morning. Anyways, that's kind of community right there. That's it.
Yeah.
So
There
thank
it
you, Dawn.
is. You're welcome. This was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
This was great.
That concludes our episode 1 of Nate in the Neighborhood.
Nice.
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
I
this was
liked
great.
it.
I loved it.